Hello and welcome back to my RC channel. I'm AndyRC and today I'm going to be checking out the GepRC Rocket. This is a 3 to 4S 2-inch brushless bind and fly that comes with the new Cadex Vista. So for those of you who don't know what the Cadex Vista is or didn't see my review, it's the Lite version of the DJI HD FPV Air unit. So for the moment it's only compatible with the DJI FPV goggles and there's no onboard recording, so you can only record the DVR from the FPV goggles, which is still a decent 720p resolution. You can use your own controller with it and they offer a bunch of different receiver options. However, I'm using the DJI controller in this case to save on a bit of weight and bother. If you want to know more about the Vista, then I'll add a card to the top right of this video because today is going to be more about the GepRC Rocket as a model. So it's using a very similar layout to my favourite Cinewhoop of last year, which is the GepRC Cine Pro 4K. And what I love about the Cine Pro 4K is that it flies like it doesn't have any protectors, which I put down to an even weight distribution. The components are spread nicely across the frame and the battery is top mounted, which resulted in the perfect combination. Now the Rocket is actually slightly lighter than the Cine Pro 4K, with a dry weight of 125 grams, whereas the Cine Pro 4K is 3 grams heavier. But what concerns me with the Rocket is that its weight distribution is not even. They have used their 20 amp all-in-one ESC and F4 flight controller at the base, and then they have attached the Vista to the top plate, so with the LiPo mounted on top of all of that, I'm a little bit worried about how it's going to perform flying acro outdoors. Now I've already flown it indoors when I was reviewing the Vista and it performed just as well as the Cine Pro 4K with a 650 mAh 3S LiPo, and the Cine Pro 4K flew best outside with a 650 mAh 4S LiPo, so that's what I'm going to use when flying the Rocket outdoors today, which results in an all-up weight of 207 grams. But when models with protectors have all of their components stacked on top of each other like this, it usually results in yaw washout or prop wash that can't be tuned out. So my advice to GepRC would be to make better use of the space and have the all-in-one board closer to the front of the frame and the Vista unit moved back, which would create a counterbalance for the weight of the camera up front. Now if you're thinking just use JESC and that will sort out any of these issues, the ESCs come set to D-Shot 300 as standard, so I think they are already being pushed on this tiny board. And I've heard a few stories about JESC burning ESCs out, so perhaps that's something I can try in the future, but I like to review products as they come out of the box. So I'm using their PIDs and their rates and not JESC. It's come flash with Betaflight 4.1, but just like all models that come flash with Betaflight, you'll need to be accustomed to Betaflight to get the model in the air. It looks like they've listened to me and soldered the low ESR capacitor directly to the all-in-one board, as the GepRC Skip also used this board, but it was getting some electrical noise through to the analog video feed. And on the Skip, they put the capacitor on the XT30 connector, which is better than nothing, but a capacitor is more effective at smoothing out voltage spikes when it's closer to the source of the problem, which in this case is the 4-in-1 ESCs. If you look at pictures on their website, they have the capacitor on the XT30 connector though, so perhaps this is something they have rushed to get it to me, because usually they place the capacitor in the side molding. In fact, the hole is there for it to fit, but it's just empty. They've put the buzzer and the LEDs in the usual place though. I should disclose that GepRC wanted to get this model out to me quickly before the Chinese New Year, so I do think things were a little bit rushed. I mean, the model didn't even come with a Vista unit attached to it. And if for some reason you need to take the model apart, be very careful, because as I documented in my Vista review, the all-in-one board has had some very flimsy TX and RX pads added to it that aren't on the original schematic of the board, and one of the pads lifted just from carefully moving the wires around, so I hope this is something that they will fix on the production units. You also can't get to the bottom camera screw without removing the front protectors. However, the camera is in pretty tight with just the 2 screws, and it's protected nicely by the aluminium braces at the front. I haven't talked about the motors yet, and they are not the same motors that they put in the Cine Pro 4K, which surprised me. However, they might as well have done because the differences kind of cancel each other out. They are the SpeedX branded 1204 5000 kV motor running the 2-inch Emax props, which you are given a spare set of, as well as a bunch of other spare stuff. The Cine Pro 4K has 1105 5000 kV motors, so the Rocket's motors are 1mm shorter but 1mm wider than the Cine Pro, so they're gonna perform very similar to each other. One thing I have noticed is that they have mounted the protectors underneath the frame this time instead of on top like they did with the Cine Pro 4K. I think this is a bad move because, for one, the motors are sitting lower and are less in line with the body, which will mess with the center of gravity, and secondly, it makes the USB connector more difficult to get to. You need a really slimline USB connector, otherwise you could accidentally lift the port off if you aren't careful. You can actually buy a version of the Rocket that houses the full air unit. In fact, they sent me the parts to do that. However, I think 3 inch is the limit for the full-sized air unit, unless you just want to cruise around and for a very short amount of time. You get given a grippy rubber mat to stop your LiPo from throwing in a crash, and the battery straps are the cheap Velcro kind, but they fit both 3 and 4S 650mAh LiPos nicely and will keep the weight down at the same time. So with focus mode turned off, I'm going straight to the goggles DVR in 4:3 low latency mode with the SRT overlay so we can look at the statistics. And with zero wind on a sunny day, the model is more than capable of performing acro without any yaw washout. However, when I put the model into high stress maneuvers, I'm getting quite a bit of prop wash, which at first I anticipated by using the throttle to correct it. But you will see some instances where I don't correct for it and there's a fair amount of wobble in the recovery. On the plus side, there is zero jello, the latency is very low and the bitrate is staying high. I tried loads of different settings such as the low latency 16:9 mode and also some of the high quality modes, so I'll put up on the screen which mode I'm in when I switch to them. Something I did pick up on is the voltage scaling. It is completely incorrect on a 4S. I think it was 0.6 of a volt out on a fully charged 4S, and I flew this thing all day. I actually have about an hour of footage, and each flight went over 4 minutes. But I was landing sometimes in the low 13s, which I wouldn't expect the model to fly on, and it felt like it could do some more, so there's definitely something wrong with the voltage scaling, because when I checked the voltage of the battery after the flights, they were around the 15 volt mark, but hey, it's a nice way to save your batteries at least. Ironically, even though the DVR footage we're looking at here is really decent, you can see that the data rate from the stats always sits around 25 megabit, but the goggles DVR records in 20 megabit, so just like analog DVRs, I'm actually seeing a better picture through the goggles than is being recorded, and when YouTube crushes the footage with its compression, the individual blades of grass and trees, which require a higher bit rate, will no doubt look a little bit blocky compared to what I was seeing through the goggles. So I'm uploading the footage in 4K to see if it makes a difference, but there's nothing much else I can do about that. When I go into the woods, which I can't do with analog due to ghost branches, should give you an indication of what I actually must be seeing through the goggles, because there's no such thing as ghost branches with this DJI system. And when I put the settings into high quality mode, the latency shot up between 30 to 45 milliseconds, but I could not tell the difference. And when you think not so long ago some analog board cameras produced that kind of latency, and we were racing with them, Maybe perhaps a seasoned racer would notice it more, but I actually found myself slowing down, not because I had to, but because the image was so amazing. I wanted to take in the scenery and the dynamic range this camera has. I don't think any HD camera could match how this one performs when it goes from light to dark, or even pointing directly into the sun. I can still make out objects that you wouldn't see with any other lightweight digital camera. Now, at the start of this video, I said I wanted the review to be about the model. It's really difficult with this DJI system because I'm still trying to adjust to it. But my conclusion on the GepRC rocket is that I think it's great for indoors, and while you can have a good time with it outdoors, I think they need to play around with the balance of the components to make it fly as good as the Cine Pro 4K, because there's no excuse. There's 3 grams between them, yet you can't trick out the Cine Pro 4K when it comes to acro. And to be fair, I expected some yaw washout with the rocket, which I'm not getting, but there's definitely a prop wash issue that I think can be fixed. And on that note, I'll leave you with some flying. I'll put a link in the description if you wish to get one. And as always, thanks so much for watching. Please continue to subscribe. Cheers.
Killing me softly, I have to choose. Should I leave or should I stay with you? I am addicted, we are too close. One more day and I'll overdose. Killing me softly, I gotta choose. Keep my life or lose myself in you. I'm so addicted, it has to end. But why do I keep holding your hand? I am stuck and I'm hypnotized. Visions of you come and stay the entire night. My mind is blurry, rescue out of sight. Crazy me, what do I not see? That you are living poison in my veins. Put the needle in me so that I feel free. I let loose, give you the key. Pray that you'll be dead to me. So ashamed, this is my destiny. Crazy me, what do I not see? That you are living poison in my veins. Put the needle in me so that I feel free. I let loose, give you the key. Pray that you'll be dead to me. I'm so ashamed.